Hi guys, and welcome back to Grandpa Playing Games. Have you ever wanted to explore the many wonderful and exciting mods that are available to enhance the Derail Valley experience, but not wanted to affect any of your current save game files, sessions, or careers? In this video, we're going to show you how to create a separate copy of Derail Valley in which you can run your mods in. We're going to create a discrete location for your save game files from each or for each of these copies. We're going to install Unity Mod Manager, Skin Manager, and Mapify Unofficial Preview, all of which are used to get your mods into a version of Derail Valley. And we're going to download and install some of these mods as a means of demonstration. So if this sounds of interest to you, stay tuned. Okay, so just before we start, a few house rules, if you like. Firstly, for your convenience, I'll be putting chapters to the various sections of this tutorial in the description. So if you don't need a particular aspect of it, just refer to the chapters that you need to find out further information about. Secondly, some caveats, of course. Some of the procedures that we'll be doing have the potential of causing you to lose your saved games if you don't follow the procedure properly. It's a pretty low risk thing overall, but as per usual, it's really up to the user here to ensure that they've made appropriate backups, etc. of their user data. And I'll be pointing out what you can back up and how to back it up as we go along. And thirdly, if you don't mind any mods that you want to install affecting your existing game, then you probably don't need to create a second copy of Derail Valley. And you can skip the first two sections of this tutorial. But for safety's sake, I like to create a separate installation of Derail Valley, run all of my mods there, and keep my original game and its save files, etc. entirely separate from the modded version of Derail Valley. That way I can choose which one I want to run. So, with that being said, let's move into the tutorial for step number 1, creating a second installation of your Derail Valley. Although there seems to be a lot of steps involved in setting up a second copy of Derail Valley on your system and making sure that each copy stores its save games in discretely different folders, it is certainly highly recommended so that there is no possibility of corruption of your save game files from the modded version or the original version. These are the steps that we'll be running through over the next few minutes. We'll be locating your Derail Valley users folder. We'll also locate your current installation of Derail Valley in your Steam folder. We're going to create a folder to store your new Derail Valley copy. We're going to copy the existing Derail Valley to that new folder, rename and back up the original Derail Valley users folder that was identified in step A, We're going to create a new folder to store saves for the modded Derail Valley copy. Create folders to store batch files and shortcuts which we'll use to launch either version of Derail Valley. We're going to be creating batch files for launching both the original Derail Valley as well as the new copy of Derail Valley. And then, since those need to be run as administrators, we're going to optionally create a task to run those batch files as administrator and a shortcut which will help to launch the task to run the batch files as the administrator. It might sound complex, but it's not all that involved. So follow along and I'm sure we'll get there. To ensure that our original save game files, our original careers, and our original Sandbox Sessions remain intact and untouched by any of the mods, we're going to create a second copy of Derail Valley. And to do that, we need to know a few things. Firstly, we need to know where Derail Valley stores its save game files, and we need to know where our current installation of Derail Valley is. Derail Valley, by default, stores its files in a predefined location, and that's on your C drive. It'll be under your users folder, under your username, whatever that happens to be, and then under app data. So if you're unable to see the app data folder, you need to go up here to Options, click on the View tab, and make sure that Show Hidden Files, Folders and Drives is selected. Then you should see the App Data folder appear. Double click the App Data folder, go into Local Low and Alt Future and Derail Valley. So the users folder is where all of the different save games and user profiles is located. So please make a note of the location of the users folder, as you'll be needing to access that shortly. The next step is to locate your installed version of Derail Valley. Typically, it has been downloaded from Steam and will be contained within the Steam folders. So in my particular case, Steam is located on the D drive. So I have a folder here for Steam, and then within the Steam folder, we're looking for Steam Apps. Under Steam Apps, we look for Common. Under Common is Derail Valley. So again, make a note of that location. We'll be needing to access that shortly as well. So the next thing you'll want to do is to create a folder to contain your new copy of Derail Valley. I went to my D drive and I created a folder called Games, and within that I also created a folder called Derail_Valley_modded. So go ahead and create a folder now. And the next thing we will do is we're going to copy our original version of Derail Valley into the folder that we've just created. So in order to do that, the easiest way is to go to your Derail Valley version or Steam version of Derail Valley, which again is located under Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Derail Valley, and then go ahead, highlight all of that, copy, then go to your new folder, in my case, Games, Derail Valley Modded, and paste. So this of course will take a minute or two, but not very long at all. Okay, and there it is. No matter how many copies of Derail Valley you might have on your machine, they all want to store their save game data in one folder, which is the users folder that we identified in our very first step, 1A. What we're going to do here is to make it possible for each of our versions of Derail Valley to store its own save game data in a separate folder. And to do that, we're going to be relying upon what's known as symlinks. This is how we do it. We're going to go to the users folder that we identified in step 1A, which is under C column, users, your username, app data, local low, alt future, and Derail Valley. This is where you found that users folder previously. We're going to rename this users folder, right clicking on it, show more options, click on rename, and we're going to call it users, we'll add a space, dash, space, original. Now this folder stores all of our game files, user profiles, etc. So it is very important. Please make sure you make a backup of it. So hold down your Shift key, right click, select copy, and then clicking on the desktop, right click again and select paste. So the next step is to create a folder that you are going to store the save game files from the second copy of Derail Valley that you just made in, so that they won't overwrite or otherwise become jumbled up with the save files of your original version of Derail Valley. So I'd recommend creating a folder within the same root folder that you had created for the Derail _Valley modified. We're going to call this one Derail Valley modded saves. Derail Valley modded saves. Once you create that folder, go ahead, open it up and create a new folder, again just by right clicking, selecting new folder, and give it a name of users-modded. That's users followed by a space, followed by a dash, followed by a space, followed by modded. And remember, all of these names are case sensitive, so please follow it exactly. Okay, we're not quite finished with creating folders yet, just a couple more to go. This time we're going to be creating some folders that will store the batch files that we'll be using to launch either version of Derail Valley, either the original or the copy that we just made. And those batch files will also be specifying where the save location is for that particular instance of Derail Valley that we want to run. So I suggest putting these in an accessible location, such as, for instance, your desktop. And I also suggest that you just follow along with my naming conventions for now. You can always play around with changing names later on should you choose. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to right click on the desktop and we're going to do new folder, and we're going to create a folder called Derail Valley Startup. That's Derail space Valley space Startup, all in caps. Once you've created that, open it up and create another folder called Batch Files Do Not Delete. Batch Files dash do not delete. Again, it's batch with a capital B, a space, files with a capital F, a space, a dash, a space, the word do in caps, a space, not in caps, a space, and delete in caps. So now we'll create a pair of batch files, one for each instance of Derail Valley, your original as well as the new copy that you've made. These batch files will not only launch the appropriate version of Derail Valley, but they'll ensure that the save file location is correct for the version of Derail Valley that you're running. Okay, go ahead and open up the Derail Valley startup folder that you created earlier and open up the batch files do not delete folder. Once in there, you can right click, select new text document. No need to give it a name at this stage. Just double click on that text document to open up a new notepad document. Now, I will be putting the information to be typed into the notepad document on the screen shortly. You can go ahead and you can pause the video and type it into your notepad document should you wish to do it that way. Alternatively, to make it a little easier for you, I'm putting the complete list of instructions, including the batch files, into the Grandpa Playing Games channel pages under the Posts tab. So you can always look in there and do a bit of copy pasting, but I do warn you, you will need to edit to change my file locations to your own, as we'll be explaining now. So this first batch file is used to launch the original version of Derail Valley that you had, as well as ensuring that all of your original save games, Sandbox Sessions and careers are restored appropriately. Anything that is in blue is something that you will need to change to the appropriate folder that is on your system. And of course you don't need to type the line numbers that appear on the left in. And finally, make sure that line 11 is all entered on one line, even though here it's wrapped onto a second line. Okay, let's just have a quick look. Line 5 removes the users directory in the users your name, app data, local low, old future, Derail Valley folder. So it just ensures that everything is blank and ready to be received a new copy of data. Line 11 creates what we call a symlink, which basically specifies that the user's folder, again under users your name, app data, local layer, old future, Derail Valley folder, is essentially redirected to the user's dash original folder that we created. And finally, line 13 ensures that we're starting the appropriate version of Derail Valley. So make sure that points to your original version of Derail Valley, the one that appears in your Steam folder. Okay, I'm going to allow you to pause the video at this point if you wish and type it in. But just a reminder, it is also available on the Grandpa Playing Games channel pages under the Posts tab should you wish to do a bit of copy pasting. Don't forget, you will need to make those appropriate edits anywhere that appears in blue on the screen. Okay. After typing or pasting the data in and making the appropriate changes, just go into your notepad and do a file, save as, and give it the following name. We're going to be calling this launch original dv.bat. Make sure you put in the .bat, and that's what makes it a batch file that can be executed. Once you've done a file, save as, launch original dv.bat into the batch files do not delete folder, which I've already done, so I won't replace it. Then you can go ahead, if you like, and close your notepad. Go back into the batch files do not delete, and again double click on the new text document. Now we're going to put up the code for the batch file that will launch the new copy of Derail Valley. And we're going to be calling it launch modded dv.bat. I'll put up the code now. So this is the code for launch modded dv.bat. As before, either pause the video at this point and type it into Notepad, or alternatively go to the channel page of Grandpa Playing Games channel and look in under the Posts tab for a post that has all of these things in text form for you to do a bit of a copy paste. Just like before, then to make sure that you modify any of the paths that are shown here in blue to suit your particular system. And once you've done that, you can go ahead and do a save as, and the file name will be launch modded dv.bat, as you see on the screen now. Alright, now that you've created your launch modded dv.bat, you can go ahead and close your notepad, and you can also get rid of the new text document.txt file as it's no longer needed. So just right click on it and send it to the trash bin. Okay, so a couple of important things to note here. Firstly, in order to run these batch files successfully, they must be run as administrator. Now that means that you've got a couple of choices. You can either just right click and select Run as Administrator, in which case it will ask if you want to allow this app to make changes to your device, etc. You would click on yes, and then hopefully Derail Valley would launch successfully. Or you can proceed to automate that, make it a task, which is what we're going to look at in the next two optional steps. My recommendation is to do the next two steps. They don't take very long. They're quite straightforward. But if you've had enough by now and you just want to get going, it's okay to launch these particular batch files by right-clicking on them, clicking Run as Administrator, and then clicking the Yes button. In order to know that they've run successfully and that they are saving the files into the right locations, please proceed to step L, which is how we will test that what we have done is working. But I do recommend you do sections J and K first, because that's going to make running these scripts a lot easier. It just means you have to double click them rather than remember to run them as admin. If we want to be able to run the batch files automatically as administrator without right clicking on them and selecting the Run as Administrator task, and then having to confirm that's what we wanted to do every time, then we can automate the process using the task scheduler. That's what we're going to do now. Unfortunately, Windows 11 doesn't have a means of allowing permissions for a batch file to run as administrator. If you go under Properties for a batch file, you'll see that there is no option here to run as administrator. So we have to use something different in order to do that. There's a thing called a task scheduler available in Windows 11 and earlier versions as well. And in it, we're going to set up a task that is going to enable these batch files to be launched as an administrator. So, we find Task Scheduler by going into the search option, typing in Task Scheduler, and you'll see it there. When you open it, it looks like this. We're going to create two tasks, one for each batch file. So from the opening window, we're going to click on Create Task. And here we're going to give it a name. Now I've already created these tasks, so I'm going to show you the tasks that I've already done. So for the task that will open launch original dv.bat as an administrator, we're going to call it launch origin dv. Launch origin dv. Then under the general tab, we click Run with Highest Privileges. That's the equivalent of Run as Administrator. Don't need to do anything else on this tab. We leave Triggers blank. Under Actions, you're going to click on New, and when you select New, this dialog box will pop up. You're going to select the Start a Program action, And then for the program and script, you're going to click on the Browse, and then you're going to select your launch original dv.bat file and click on Open. Then you'll be clicking OK. And OK again. In my case, I need to remove one of these because I'd already had it set up. Okay, so once we click on OK, it's done. The next thing we'll want to do is the same thing for the modded dv.bat file. So again, you'll click on Create Task. You will give it a name of Launch Modded DV. You'll make sure Run with Highest Privileges is checked. Triggers is empty. And under Actions, you'll click on New, Start a Program, Browse, and select your launch modded dv.bat. Gonna open, OK, and OK. And it's as simple as that. Now these tasks are created, but they won't run automatically. In order to run the tasks, we need to create shortcuts to them, which is what we'll be doing next. Once this is all done, you can click on Close for the task scheduler and move on to the next section, which is section K. So if you've made it this far, congratulations, you're on the final step. So in our last couple of steps, we created some batch files that would not only launch the appropriate version of Derail Valley, but it also set up an environment where the save game files would save to a location of our choice. And in our last step, we created a task that would allow us to launch that batch file as an administrator. However, those tasks are not going to execute automatically. We need to set up some form of trigger to get them to run. And that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to create a couple of shortcuts that are going to trigger those tasks. So the first thing to do is to go into your Derail Valley startup folder that you probably saved on your desktop. And don't go into the batch files, do not delete subfolder here, just go into the root level and right click, select New and select Shortcut. Now we don't have a file to point to here, so we need to type in what we want the shortcut to be pointing to. And that's going to be the task scheduler, so SCHTASKS task scheduler. And we're going to say run, that's /run, and then /TN, which stands for the task name. And if you'll recall, we created a task called Launch Original DV. Okay, so it's SCH tasks /run /TN for task name, and then the task name itself in inverted commas, Launch Original DV. Once you've done that and you've checked everything is correct, go ahead, click on Next, and we'll give this shortcut a name. So we're just going to call it Launch Original Derail Valley. Simple as that. Click on Finish and you can see the shortcut appears here. Okay, now to do one for the modded version of Derail Valley. So we're going to right click again, select New, Shortcut, And we'll type in sch tasks /run /tn for task name, and this time the task name was launch modded DV. Now note I made a mistake here, so just make sure that you've typed everything correctly to begin with. Launch modded DV, click on next, and the name for the shortcut will be launch modded Derail Valley. Okay, that being done, let's click on finish, and that's it. So what these shortcuts will do is they'll open up the appropriate tasks in the task scheduler. It's going to execute that, which is in turn going to trigger or run our batch file as an administrator or with the highest privileges possible. That batch file is then going to set up a symlink between the user's location and a file that we created to store the save game files for that particular version of Derail Valley, and then it will launch that version of Derail Valley itself. So if you've done everything correctly, that's it, you're finished. Congratulations. But do proceed now on to the next step, step L, to test it and make sure everything works as expected. Okay, time to test. We're going to be examining the original folder that we looked at in step 1, the contents of that. That was the folder that contained originally a users folder and now has been renamed to the original or users original folder. We're going to be looking at it not only through Windows Explorer, but we're also going to be using the system command prompt. If you're not familiar with that, click on the search and type in CMD. That will bring up in Windows 11 the best match for command prompt, and please run it as administrator. Okay, that will bring up this window here, and we're going to be doing a directory or a listing of this particular folder in the command prompt. The way we do that is we type in the command dir for directory, and then :users. So you can just type US and press on tab, and that will auto-complete the rest of the folder name. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to be putting in our own username, just the same as you see up here in the window. In my case, it's David. Then a backslash. Then we're going to put in app data, so app and press tab should be fine. A backslash local low, so this time if you put in LOC as an example and press tab, you'll find that it only says local. That's because there's more than one match for LOC. So we can either keep on pressing tab and alternate suggestions will appear, or we can keep typing until the folder that we want is uniquely identified. So we can put another L here and press tab again. That will be picking out the local low folders that we want. Backslash alt future backslash DE for Derail Valley, or you can type more if you need to. When you press tab this time, because there is a space in the name of Derail Valley. It's going to include the whole string or the whole path in double quotation marks. Okay, so once that is done, just press enter and you'll be able to see the directory listings here. Now we're going to just for a moment move that to the side here and do comparison, and we can see that the preference folder is represented here as a directory. The Unity folder is represented here as a directory, and that users folder that we renamed users-original is also represented here as a directory. Okay, we can go ahead and slide this down here now so that we can see both the Windows folder as well as the command prompt. So the assumption here is that you haven't run any of the batch files at all at this point in time, and therefore we're not seeing any of the symlinks that will be created when you run the batch files. So let's go ahead and run one of the batch files now. We're going to test these in various stages. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run the batch file manually as an administrator and check that everything is working fine there. Later on, if you did sections J and K, we'll also test the automation to have it automatically run the batch file as an administrator. But for now, go ahead, double click on your Derail Valley startup folder and double click in the batch files do not delete folder. So we'll start off by testing the launch original dv.bat file. So hold down your shift key and right click there and select run as administrator. When you do, you'll get a prompt up asking you if you want to run it as an administrator. Click on yes, and if everything goes according to plan, you should see after a bit of a brief delay that Derail Valley is launched. And once you get into Derail Valley, all of your sessions should be there just the same as normal. Okay, if they're not, don't panic, we'll be looking at that as well. Okay, so let's quit out of this now. So now we have ascertained that Derail Valley will launch okay. We need to make sure that it correctly pointed to the folder that we specified, the user's original folder to save its games. So if you have a look here, you'll see that after we ran the batch file, a users folder was created, but if you look carefully you can see there's a little arrow here. So that means that it's redirecting a virtual users folder, if you like, to another location. If we go back into click on our command prompt and we refresh that, and we can just press the up arrow to repeat the previous command and press enter once more, we see something completely different. We see the preferences and Unity and users original folders or directories are still listed, but we also see that a symlink has been created, and that's going to point to our users original folder. So basically it means that the Unity folder, the users folder has now been redirected to the user's original. So that also means that when we go to save our games or load our games, it's actually going to be drawing it from this folder here rather than that folder there. Now, in case it didn't work, or later on, in case you forget to launch the game from the batch file, and instead you launch it from the, say, the Steam launch application, then you might find that you see something a bit different. We're going to go ahead and delete that symlink now, and we can do that simply by clicking on users here and pressing delete. And let's go ahead and I'm just going to create a new folder, users. So if when you run the directory command here, rather than seeing the symlink, you saw that the users folder appeared as a directory or as a folder rather than a symlink, that means that essentially you have either forgotten to rename the folder, or forgotten to delete the users folder, or perhaps you have launched Derail Valley through a means other than the batch file. And you shouldn't do that because we need to make sure that the redirection occurs appropriately via the symlink. Okay, let me just delete this now. Okay, so we've tested manually the launch original Derail Valley batch file worked. Let's do the same thing with our launch modded batch file. Launch modded Derail, launch modded Derail Valley.bat. So we're going to hold down our shift key, we're going to right click it, we're going to select run as administrator. So if you don't run it as administrator, Windows will not allow symlinks to be created. You don't have sufficient permissions to create symlinks, and that's why the batch file operation will fail if you do not run as administrator. So you must always run these batch files as administrator. Once we do that, whilst we're waiting for the game to launch, we can see that the users folder has been created as a symlink pointing to somewhere. You may find that Derail Valley takes a little bit longer to launch than you're accustomed to, simply because it is creating that symlink and basically sort of copying the information from your user's folder from whichever version of Derail Valley that you're using, and replacing the contents of the folder with that. Okay, once that launches, again, if you click on sessions, you'll either see nothing at all because it's brand new and you've never run it before, or alternatively, you will see sessions that are applicable only to the modded version of Derail Valley. Let's go ahead and click on quit again. We know Derail Valley is launching correctly. And we are now going to test. We're now going to test that the symlink was created successfully. So again, we can press the up arrow to repeat the previous command. Click on there, and now if you look at the symlink that is created, it is to the user's modded folder that we created under Games Derail Valley modded saves earlier in the process. So that's all working okay. Fantastic. But if you've played along in sections J and K, we need to now make sure that we can launch the tasks that will allow these batch files to run as administrator without having to press Shift and right click, selecting run as administrator, and then answering yes to the prompt that appears. Bit of a pain. So that's why we created the tasks and shortcuts. So we can either test each of those things individually to make sure that they work, or we can test the end result. So let's go ahead again and open up our Derail Valley startup folder. This time we're not going to go into the batch files, do not delete, and we'll click on or double click the launch original Derail Valley shortcut. Once we do that, straight away it should commence to open up Derail Valley. Without you having to do all of the mucking around that you had to when you were doing it manually. Okay, so this is the original version. We can again verify that by having a look at the sessions. Everything is as expected. And we're going to quit. Looking again at the command prompt. Up arrow to repeat the previous command. And when we look at the directory now, we can see again the symlink has redirected the users folder to our users original folder. So everything's fine. Now you could go ahead, obviously, if everything has worked for you, and also double click on the launch modded Derail Valley shortcut and make sure that it works and that it displays the right symlink when you use that. Okay, so what if it didn't work? What if the batch file, when you ran that, worked, when you ran it manually as an administrator worked, but double clicking on the shortcut doesn't? So what you would do then is go into your task scheduler, open it, and in the window that appears here, you're going to go through the task scheduler library. Make sure it's highlighted, and you'll scroll down until you find your particular tasks. When you've done that, you can go ahead and either select properties or just double click it, which will bring up the window, and check everything is set correctly here. Run with highest privileges, named correctly, and the action is pointed to the appropriate batch file that you want to run. Okay, well, I hope that all worked for you. If so, congratulations. You now have a second copy of Derail Valley on your system that we'll use to install various mods and so on in our next section. Mods provide enhanced functionality, tools, and utilities for Derail Valley. And one of the best places to get mods from is a website called nexusmods.com. Now, in order to download the tools that you'll need to install these various mods for Derail Valley, you'll need to firstly go to nexusmods.com and create an account. It's free, and that'll enable you to download not only the tools, but also all of the, or as many of the mods from there as you would like. There's 3 tools that we're going to look at installing today. The first one is called Unity Mod Manager, or UMM. The second one is Mapify, Unofficial Preview. And the third one is Skin Manager. So, assuming that you've already created your account, let's firstly start off with UMM, Unity Mod Manager. So to install Unity Mod Manager, we first need to go to the URL that I'll be putting into the description below as well as on screen now. So that'll take you to this page at Nexus Mods. And first thing that we need to do is to go ahead and download it. So click on Manual, and you'll see that you get a choice of either a slow download or a fast download. The fast download is limited to premium accounts. I only have a free account at this stage. So I'll select slow download, but as you can see, it's not a very big file anyway, 1.5 megabyte. It won't take too long to download. Once you've downloaded the Unity Mod Manager zip file, then just open it up by double-clicking on it and extract it into a convenient location such as your desktop. Do not extract it into the folders for the game itself, but keep it outside of that. In our case, we're going to put it into the Derail Valley startup folder that we created in step 1. So it's just a matter of dragging the folder from the zip file into our Derail Valley startup folder, and it's as simple as that. Once you've done that, you can go ahead and close the zip file window and delete the zip file should you choose. And then we're going to go into the Unity Mod Manager installer folder. We're going to double click the Unity Mod Manager exe. That's then going to open up the Unity Mod Manager installer window. And it's here where we install the mod manager itself into the version of Derail Valley that we want it to apply to. So the best thing to do here is click under the game drop down and locate Derail Valley. So once you've selected Derail Valley from the game drop down, it will likely find the installed version of Derail Valley that you originally downloaded from Steam. If you followed with our sections 1 and 2, however, you'll want to change that to our second copy of Derail Valley so that we can keep the first one intact and unmodified. So just click here under folder, and a folder drop down or selection box will appear. In our case, our second version is under Games, Derail Valley Modded. Select that, and you're done. Click on Install. You should get the message, installation was successful. And that is as easy as that. Now that you've installed the Unity Mod Manager, we can use it to help to install some of the other tools that we're going to require so that we can successfully install various types of mods like skins and so on into Derail Valley. So the first one we're going to download is called Mapify Unofficial Preview. As the name suggests, this will allow custom maps to be installed into Derail Valley. So the URL for this is again in the description below, as well as on screen now. Just open up that page and then just click on the Mapify zip file to commence downloading it. Once that one's downloaded, open up your downloads folder and locate mapify.zip. Mapify.zip. We're then going to open up our Unity Mod Manager installer again, just by opening up the folder and finding Unity Mod Manager exe, double clicking on it, and then we can just click on the mods tab, drag the mapify.zip file into this box here, and that's the installation of Mapify Unofficial Preview completed. But we can go ahead and check that it's all okay as far as actually appearing inside Derail Valley by launching our version of Derail Valley, our modded version, and just making sure that it appears in here. Let's just launch the modded Derail Valley. And straight away, when we open Derail Valley now, the Mod Manager window appears, and we can see any mods that we've had installed. So at the moment we've only installed Mapify Unofficial Preview. If we click on it, there's some settings available, and we can turn the mod on or off. Okay, let's go and install the next thing now. Skin Manager allows various paint schemes to be applied to Derail Valley rolling stock. So, as per usual, I'll be putting a link to Skin Manager in the description below, as well as putting it up on screen now for you. Go ahead to Nexus Mods, make sure you're logged in, and then select Manual to download the Skin Manager. It says it requires one or more additional files in order to work properly, and need to ensure that we have these files installed before attempting to use this file, Language Helper as well as Unity Mod Manager. Well, we already have Unity Mod Manager. Let's go to Language Helper, and I'll put the link for it as well. We're going to download it. Slow download is fine if you're a free account like me. It's a small 13 kilobyte file, so it only takes a second. Let's go back now to the Skin Manager and download it. slightly larger at 1.5 megabyte. Or so it said. Really only 238 kilobyte, I think, in size. Either way, it's a real quick download. So once you've managed to download both of those, open up your downloads folder, locate the language helper as well as the skin manager, both of which are zip files and can be installed into Unity Mod Manager exactly the same way as before. So make sure you open up the Unity Mod Manager installer, then drag the language helper into the box and the skin manager into the box as well. We can see here those have both been installed and their status is okay. So now we're good to go. So in order to test our tools, we're going to be installing DV Forgotten Tracks, a mod on Nexus Mods that has been newly updated. And this is going to be a good test for us because it uses a variety of different things, including a new map, new effects for the game, and new skins as well. So what we do is we go to Nexus Mods, and as per usual, I'll be putting the URL up on the screen and in the description below. And when we go to the Forgotten Tracks main page and read the description, we can see a number of things. It's got some install instructions here, which we're going to follow. It says it requires Mapify Unofficial Preview, which we've already installed. It's also going to need this file here, which is 115 S282, which is a skin for the steam locomotive. And so let's go ahead and look at that. To install it, it says make sure you have UMM and Skin Manager installed and working successfully. They are. We download the zip file and we drag the zip file into Unity Mod Manager. So go as usual, click on Manual and select Download. The small file, it's already downloaded. Okay, let's go back to Forgotten Tracks. And Forgotten Tracks says the next thing to do is to download the mods zip file, which is named Forgotten. So to do that, top of the page here, also click on Manual and slow download. This one a little bit larger at 427 megabytes. Once those two zip files have been downloaded, we can go ahead and install the first, the 115 S282 zip file, into Unity Mod Manager. We open our Downloads folder, locate the file, which is called 115-1121, etc. Open up your Unity Mod Manager installer, grab the file, and simply drag it into the drop zip files here box. You'll see, as per usual, it's installed it and its status is okay. Alright, let's move on to the next step, which is putting Forgotten Tracks into Unity itself. And to do that, let's go back to the instructions on the web page. So we've completed step 1 and step 2. Next it says to unzip the Forgotten zip file, open it up and drag the Forgotten Tracks EN zip file into UMM. And then there's additional steps beyond that. So let's complete that section. So when we open up the Forgotten zip file, we see that there is a Forgotten Tracks EN.zip That's the one that we're going to be installing into the Unity Mod Manager. So it's simply a matter of dragging it across. Takes a little bit longer, it's a bigger file, but eventually we see Forgotten Tracks appears here and its status is okay as well. Okay, let's go back to the web page and see what the additional steps are. Okay, we've just completed step 4. For step 5, it's basically saying let's go to the users folder of Derail Valley, open up the profile of the player that we wish to use, and install the other 2 files which are in the Forgotten Tracks zip file into Game Data Assets. So in our case, the users folder that we want is located in a separate directory than that which is listed on the site's instruction page. So we're going to go to our D drive. We're going to go to Games, Derail Valley Modded Saves, and to our users modded file. Open it up. Now you may have more than one player profile, or you may just have the one default here. Either way, select the profile name that you wish to run Forgotten Tracks in. Go to Game Data, and if you do not have an assets folder, then just simply right click on it, select New Folder, and create a folder called Assets in there. And then drag across the 2 DV files here, the DV scenario and the DV difficulty files. So select one, click on hold down Control, click on the other, and drag them straight into your assets folder. So that's all of the steps that are required to install DV Forgotten Tracks into your copy of Derail Valley. So now that we're complete, let's launch Derail Valley, our modded version, and just make sure that everything appears as it should. Find your batch file to launch the modded version of Derail Valley, double click on it, and wait for Derail Valley to open. When Derail Valley opens, you should see the Unity Mod Manager appear, and you should be able to see all of the various mods and tools that you've installed. So we can see that 115 file, the skin, has been installed, as has Forgotten Tracks, and the various tools like Mapify, Skin Manager, and DV Language Helper are installed as well. Status is green on all of those, which is good, and they're all currently turned on. Okay, so everything is looking good there. We can close the Unity Mod Manager. If you want to, you can start a new session, and you should see a new option appear here, which is Map. So now we've got the Mapify installed. We're able to choose maps, and we can see Forgotten Tracks is a valid map inside there. Also, once we turn off the tutorial, which is a requirement for a Forgotten Tracks career, then we can see that there's also a Forgotten difficulty level available. But as we saw when we ran our Forgotten Tracks first look video, we're unable to launch this career with the Forgotten difficulty. Instead, we need to start off as standard until such a time as we have achieved the concurrent orders 1 or train length 1 licenses. So we need to earn about $10,000 inside Forgotten Tracks before we're able to purchase one of those licenses, and then we can set the difficulty to the originally intended Forgotten. The alternative is, of course, we can run Forgotten in sandbox mode, And under sandbox mode, it's important that we set the scenario to forgotten. The difficulty should be able to be forgotten here, and the map to forgotten tracks. So we're not going to run those here. Have a look at our first impressions video if you want to see what you should be seeing when you load up the DV forgotten tracks. But for now, that's the process about how to install mods safely in your system by creating a second version of Derail Valley and ensuring that the saves files are going into separate locations so there's no possibility of corruption between your original Derail Valley and the new copy of Derail. Again, I hope this series has been of benefit to you. If so, please go ahead, click on the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thanks for watching.